Welcome back inside the den. We got a good one for you today. With me, as always, is Chris Murray. We're talking about basketball today. We're going to get into that. Big win. I mean, really lopsided. You rarely see that in college basketball to that extent. I mean, you usually see it with, last year we saw it with William Jessup, but that's to be expected. This is a WCC team in Pacific. What's your main takeaways from Nevada's 88-39 win?
Yeah, I mean, it was a 12.5-point line, so I don't think anybody expected a 49-point margin of victory. To put some historical context on it, that's actually Nevada's largest win over a Division I opponent in its entire history. It did have 4 games where it played non-Division I schools where it had a larger margin of victory. The 39 points allowed, the second lowest in Nevada's Division I history against a Division I opponent. That goes back to 1969. There was a game in 1976 when they played St. Mary's. They won 19-16. So it was a historic performance, especially that first half. I don't have first half only numbers, but to be up by 40 points after the first half, 55-15, is not something that I think anybody imagined, because while Pacific's not a great team, picked 8th out of 9 teams in the West Coast Conference in the preseason poll, lost to Sam Houston State in their first game and really struggled to score. It was a team that was coming over a win against Cal, which, Cal's not great, but that's a Pac-12 team. Pacific hit 14 threes. They scored more than 80 points. I think a lot of people thought this would be a much more competitive game. But given how Nevada started the season with a win against a Pac-12 opponent, now with this blowout victory over Pacific, I think Wolfpack fans should be dreaming big about what this team can accomplish. Certainly, this is only a 40-minute glimpse, and there are going to be some more difficult tests ahead. But it's a really good start for the season, especially given that exhibition game against Stan State was pretty close. Nevada has really responded, and already a little bit of chatter about maybe getting into a top 25.
Yeah, we always take a lot of stock in the exhibition games. It's a common trap every year where we're like, take too much stock. Obviously, with the Oregon victory this year, and then the close game with Stanislaus, you're like, what is this team really going to be? So that's just a lesson going forward, I guess. Don't take full stock in exhibition, but a great game nonetheless. Last week we came off, they came off of a victory against Washington. My takeaway from that was they'll go as Keenan Blackshear and Jared Lucas go, and while Blackshear had another solid night, those two only had 12 points apiece, right?
Yeah.
And this is an 88-point output. So you had 12 of the 13 players that were dressed up score on the night. So it really speaks to the depth that Steve Alford was talking to prior to the season. So yeah, it was kind of cool to see just all the contributions from all levels, from Nick Davidson down to Isaac Hyams, who got his first bucket, which drew a lot of excitement from Nevada bench. But does that kind of does it speak to the depth that Alford was talking about, or
I mean, I think that was a unique situation. Yeah. You're not obviously going to be able to play 12 guys in the first half of a game very often. You're not going to have 11 guys get a bucket in the first half of a game very often. I think ideally you want to have 9 guys you can trust and 9 guys who are going to get double-digit minutes. I think if you go beyond that, then you start cutting minutes from your stars, and Nevada's not going to do that. They're not taking minutes away from Keenan Blackshear, Jared Lucas, or Trey Coleman. So yeah, I mean, this is a deeper team, but I think the biggest takeaway more so from last night's game is the defense. Nevada's holding opponents under 40% shooting, under 30% from 3. Even their free throw defense has been great, which I kind of made a joke about and maybe rubbed some people the wrong way. But people are shooting less than 50% from the free throw line against Nevada, which obviously they don't have much to do with. But maybe that also speaks to the quality of offensive talent that they're going against. So we'll see. I mean, you start the season and you want to be able to have the DNA of a beginning, developing championship caliber team. And Nevada really stressed defense needed to be more in that DNA than previous years. That's why they went out and changed the front court to try and get more defensive oriented. And so far, it is showing that they've done a very good job of playing much better defense than they did last year when they were a solid defensive team, but not a great defensive team. And that's why they were a good ball club last year, but not a great ball club. And you're starting to see some elements of maybe having a great ball club on your side. So, they talked after yesterday's game about heat culture, and that was one thing they wanted to adopt this offseason, was to be the most physical team on the court every time they hit the court. And certainly through 3 games, they've proven to be that. And now will it continue? I mean, you go back to that 2018-19 season, Nevada started 24-1, and most people look at that season as a disappointment, even though it was, in the top 5 in the nation at one point. So it's a long journey, but certainly the first couple of steps in this marathon have been very positive. And more so than anything for me, it's the fact that they are playing defense, because they're not hitting threes even in yesterday's game, but they're still winning games pretty handily. So, if you're playing great defense and then you get some better shooting performances, that's when you become a great team, because that defense can be their game in and game out. Some games you're going to shoot well, some games you're not. But if you're great defensively, you give yourself so much more margin for error of an offensive team. When things go well, you have blowouts like we saw against Pacific. When things don't go so well in terms of shooting the three-point ball, you still are able to go on the road and beat a Pac-12 team like they did against Washington.
Yeah, and I think the return of KJ Himes, is kind of not like, talked about too much in the offseason, but you could see his presence on the interior. He's a hell of a like a rim protector, and to have like him in there to like contest shots and block it, it makes life harder on the opposing offenses, and also that with that depth we talk about, Jazz Gardner, he also comes in and has that rim protection. You have a Jariah Coleman that can come in and still be as an intimidating presence. I feel like they have this luxury of these lineups to like really match up to any style of play. Trey Coleman, obviously, it's his calling card that he's an elite perimeter defender. But you'd have to imagine once Tylen Pope comes back, that even adds more to it. So you can really get to that 8-9 man rotation that is key. But I think going forward against like tougher competition, there'll be some regression to the mean. I mean, Pacific did have open threes last night; they just weren't making it, and shooting is contagious. But you'll see much higher scoring games against, if they play against like a TCU, you'll have to score a lot more. And this team has shown that it can score in those bursts. But yeah, I mean, another night of 30% shooting from deep, they'll definitely want to up that number. But I think, opposing offenses will start making more shots, and Nevada should make more three-pointers as the season goes along.
Yeah, I think the big knock on the team is going to be the schedule. I don't think you're going to truly know how good is Nevada until they get into conference play. Now, when they go to the Diamond Head Classic, they could potentially match up with TCU, as you mentioned. That would be their semifinal. If both TCU beats Old Dominion and Nevada beats Temple, they'd face them in the semifinal of the 8-team tournament. And if they got past that game, maybe they'd face Georgia Tech, which is an ACC team. It's not a great ACC team. But you look at the schedule, Nevada's basically going to be favored by double digits in the majority of its non-conference games. You've got Portland this Saturday. I think the game at Drake, I guess, is against Drake. It's in Henderson at the Dollar Loan Center down there in southern Nevada. That's a fairly good team as well. LMU, maybe Nevada, lost to them last year, so that could be a game that maybe challenges the Wolfpack. But they didn't necessarily in the non-conference schedule test themselves like some of the other teams in the Mountain West. You look at Colorado State, you look at Boise State, you look at San Diego State. Their schedules are much more difficult. So this could be a great team, and they're just blowing people out, and once they get into conference, it shows that. Or this could be a team that, maybe isn't quite as great as the scores indicate, but they're winning by a lot because they're playing lesser opponents. Even Washington out of the Pac-12, that's probably not even an NIT team. That's the team that really struggled to score last year as well. So it will be hard to get true litmus tests, but what they've done so far should tell Wolfpack fans and should tell themselves that they are one of the contenders in the Mountain West, and they could be the best team in the Mountain West when the season is over. It's just going to be, it's going to take time to truly know how good they are until they face some of these more elite competition and conference play.
Yeah, if you're looking at it, if you're a Wolfpack fan, are you rooting? I know because of a lesser non-conference schedule, are you almost rooting for the other Mountain West teams to beat those tough teams so that they can build up their resumes, and then by time the conference play comes around, they have quad 1, quad 2 opportunities abound with the Mountain West, right? Because you're almost rooting for that, because if the Mountain West is kind of down, well, that might be good for Nevada. You're also trying to build an at-large resume that got him in last year, right?
For sure. You look at last year, Nevada only played 4 quad 1 or quad 2 games in non-conference play. They were 0-2 in quad 1 games against Kansas State and Oregon. They were 1-1 in quad 2 games. So 1-3 in quad 1 and 2 games in non-conference, if you're a mid-major, almost never gets you into an NCAA tournament as an at-large berth. The reason Nevada was able to get into that NCAA tournament is because they had so many quad 1 and quad 2 games in Mountain West play. The Mountain West did very, very well in terms of building up its resume in non-conference last year. This year, it's still early, but we haven't seen it. San Diego State got blown out by BYU. New Mexico got blown out by St. Mary's. St. Mary's then lost to Weber State. The Weber State team Nevada will play, so maybe that's one of the better games on the non-conference schedule. But typically, you want about 10 to 14 quad 1 and quad 2 games on your resume by the end of the season. Nevada probably is only going to get 3 or 4 out of non-conference play, so can it get 8 to 10 in conference play. That all depends on how the Mountain West performs in non-league. So yeah, the Wolfpack is certainly rooting for the other Mountain West schools to be very good in non-league. So when they get into conference, not only are you getting all these quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities, everybody in the conference is. Maybe you get 4 teams in for the third straight season. You get that NCAA tournament credit, unit money. Those are always huge deals. I mean, San Diego State's run to the championship last year, $10 million for the conference. So it is definitely a collaborative effort in making sure that you're scheduling well enough so you're helping every other team in the Mountain West when you get to that point and you're playing against each other, and quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities are more plentiful than they had been in years past. So that's going to be a huge part of building Nevada's resume. But certainly if they go out and they play like they did against Pacific, they're going to go out there and win like 27, 28 games with this non-conference schedule, and they're going to put themselves in a very good spot to potentially get an at-large berth if it comes down to that.
Yeah. Also, just want to give flowers to Keenan Blackshear. I mean, last year had a tremendous season, but to start this year, he's really like developed as a player, and it's kind of fun just watching him. I mean, he could always get to the rack, but he's kind of like added that mid-range turnaround to his arsenal, and honestly, he is like, he looks the part of an NBA prospect, and it's exciting to see that development and how that could translate to Nevada's success this year, because I think he's far and away their best player on the team, and he despite only having 12 points, he fills up stats in many other ways, steals, assists, and boards and stuff like that. So I know you wrote an article about like how Steve, not Steve, but the media compared Keenan to Kyle Anderson, and while maybe it's not like the most apt comparison, because slow-mo he's a little slower and Keenan's a little fast. But what do you like take away from that comparison?
Yeah, it's interesting because Kyle Anderson is 6'9". He was at UCLA, played for Ben Howland. Then Steve Alford comes in. He moves Kyle Anderson to point guard. You see a lot of 6'9" point guards. He has a tremendous season. He's a first-round pick by the Spurs the next year. It's very similar with Keenan. Keenan was on the wing his first year at Nevada. He was like the 4th or 5th option behind guys like Grant Sherfield, Des Cambridge, Warren Washington. And he was kind of almost an afterthought. He was a solid player, but certainly they weren't running their offense through him. And then the injury to Hunter McIntosh last year, 4th practice of the year, they put Keenan at point guard, and it's completely unlocked his potential. I think the most interesting and unique thing about his game is he's so good in the mid-range with his back to the basket. And that's kind of a part of basketball that's fallen out of favor. It's all three-pointers or at the rim, and he can certainly get to the rim. The threes, not so good at. But his mid-range game, just in terms of watching basketball, is very fun because he is so skilled in the mid-range. He can beat you so many different ways in there. And, as a 6'6" point guard, if you're going to put your point guard on him, he's going to have a 4 or 5 foot, 4 or 5 inch height advantage. And if you're backing down someone who's 4 or 5 inches shorter than you, you're going to get your shot off every time. So, yeah, he's been very fun to watch over the last 2 years. Certainly he's gotten off to a good start this year. I know I wore down toward the end of last season, and I think, Coach Alford talked about how he's in better shape and he's more physically ready for all of the demands because he's also a very good defender. He was all conference defense last year. So if you have to be one of the best defenders and run an offense, that's going to wear you down over a season. So, yeah, I think he's an NBA prospect. I think if Nevada is able to go out and make a run in an NCAA tournament, that could be nothing but help him in terms of trying to get his NBA stock up there. So, Jared Lucas gotten off to a little bit of a slower start. He was probably rated a little bit higher than Keenan last year. They were both on the second team all-conference. But certainly Keenan's gotten off to a very good start this season. Took over in the second half against Sac State after not scoring in the first half. Dominated Washington, 31 points. That's a career high. Didn't play a ton of minutes yesterday because of the Pacific blowout, but certainly was off to a really good start. Had 5 made field goals in the first half. Probably could have put up another 30 if he played the whole game.
Yeah, and they're also playing an unselfish brand of basketball right now where they're kind of spreading the wealth, which is good. I mean, you need those moments where Keenan can take over, and you saw that in the Washington game, but for them to spread that around. And I like what they're doing with Jared as of late. There was a moment in the game yesterday when Pacific opted to go to 2-3 zone. It's it's not really advisable in college basketball unless you're Jim Boeheim, in Syracuse. But they dissected it, planted. I think it was like Jazz Gardner at the free throw line, and passed it in, and he kicked out of Jared, hit the 3. But Jared to start this year has been running a lot, and he talked about that when he came on the podcast, saying that he's been running up hills and stuff like that, and just getting his cardio levels up to a higher level. So they're almost using him like Steph Curry is used in Golden State, where you're just having him run everywhere, setting screens, trying to get open shots and stuff like that. And those shots will start falling for Jared. I know it's been a slow start, but you have to imagine if they can get him going, and with Keenan, you can unlock varying dimensions of this offense, because as it stands right now, it's a very interior heavy offense. With some occasional jump shots being made by McIntosh and Lucas, but to fully utilize it, to fully unlock this offense, you're gonna want to have those perimeter shots fall. Just think about it, because Keeney can back a guy down. You have your Towers and Himes and Gardner that can go bang down there, but if Keenan really takes over and plays to the back to his basket and he's backing down a guard, they're going to need to rotate. The defense needs to rotate and accommodate for that, and that would leave open shots for Nevada. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop as a perimeter shooting team, and if they can do that and start making it at 35-40% clip, you're probably looking at a top 25 team. But if they can't, then they're probably in for more dogfights throughout the year.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they start seeing some zone if they continue to shoot poorly from three. I mean, that's something that Washington had done basically all the way up until this season, because Mike Hopkins, their head coach, was associate head coach in waiting under Jim Boeheim, and that's all they did at Syracuse was play that zone. I was shocked that they never went to a zone or never doubled Keenan. They basically just let him go win the game and not put up any different strategies defensively. So it's very hard to keep Keenan out of the lane. Obviously, you mentioned the great size there. Nick Davidson's gone off to a really good start. So if you're not hitting threes, if you're a defending team, and a lot of teams like to play man-to-man, it'd be dumb not to throw in some kind of a zone to try and slow down that offense and try and make them hit some threes. I think, at the end of the year, Jared Lucas will be shooting in the high 30s in terms of a three-point percentage. That's his history, so I'm sure it'll revert back to that. But a really good sign that they're being able to win games without shooting the ball that well. They get to the free throw line really well, and they don't turn the ball over. So if you're getting to the free throw line for cheap points and you don't turn the ball over and you're giving yourself, a shot at the basket every time you have the ball, you don't have to be a perfect shooting team because you have so much more margin for error offensively. So, things have started really well. The game against Portland this Saturday, that's a mid-tier West Coast Conference school. I don't think it's a huge challenge, but I've seen Nevada teams in the past who are really, really good NCAA tournament teams have a slip up here or there, lose to a team that they should beat in non-conference play. So, we'll see if they can keep it up throughout the entire 14-game non-conference. But, outside of that maybe game at Drake and that Diamond Head Classic potential matchup with TCU, it looks like Nevada could potentially run the table in non-conference play. My prediction before the start of the season was 12-2. That would be a really good showing. But at this point, maybe they are able to go undefeated like New Mexico last year in non-conference play. Obviously, it was a different story once they got to Mountain West play with the Lobos. But you look at the schedule, you don't see a lot of, this game should be a loss or even all that close on Nevada's schedule.
It's hard to project. Obviously, the Mountain West play dictates a lot of how the season goes, but you'd have to think the collision course right now, at least on the Mountain West, is Nevada and Boise State. But it's an exciting prospect. If they do start, they run the table like you said, you'd have to imagine, some votes in the AP Top 25, because New Mexico cracked that prior to Mountain West play last year. But if they best TCU, that's a kind of a validation game there that says that they're here and they're a better squad than they were last year, and really the maturation, they talk about the Heat culture, but it just feels like the veteran leadership is really kind of steering the ship here with Lucas, Blackshear, even Davidson to a degree. He's a redshirt sophomore, but he's been there for a while in Coleman, so it's a fun team to watch if you're a Wolfpack fan. You have promise of the veterans, and then the young guys coming up through the ranks like Tyler Rollison and Jazz Gardner, who they've showed some spurts of good play.
Yeah, this is a very old team. You look at Nevada and maybe the competition they faced in Mountain West play the last couple of years. They had been going against teams that were taking advantage of that extra COVID year. You look at San Diego State last year. All of those guys, if not for the extra COVID year, would have been professionals already. So that's Nevada this season. Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear, the only reason they're allowed to play this season, their fifth year in college, is because of that extra COVID year, right? So now they are that old team that, kind of has guys who really would be playing in the G League or overseas by now, if not for that extra COVID year. You look at the starting lineup, it's 4 seniors and, like you said, a third-year player, Nick Davidson, a redshirt sophomore. So, yeah, it's a very mature team. It's an old team. It's a team that's played a lot of games, both on their own, but also together last year. They've gone through the ups and downs of a season. So it seems primed for them to go on a special year and have a great season. And we'll see if they can fulfill that destiny. Again, I think there's always going to be a little bit in the back of your mind, like exactly how good are they until they face one of those great teams. I think you go back to last year, Nevada started 4-0, but you also had that in the back of your mind until they played Kansas State, which was a really good team, and they took them to overtime in a game that they should have won in the Cayman Islands. And that's when I said, okay, this is a good team. This is like an NCAA tournament team because they went against a really good Big 12 team, and they probably should have beat them. Until a team actually does that, I think there's always going to be a little bit of hesitancy. You do have that Washington win, and that's a big win. But, Washington's probably a 500 Pac-12 team at best. Now, if they go to TCU, which is currently, I think, 15th in the country, and they even just play them close, let alone beat them, that'll be the proving point of, this is a legitimately good team that can maybe go out there and win a Mountain West championship and win NCAA tournament games. So, we'll see that development as the year goes along in terms of getting ranked. It's probably going to take something like 10-0, 13-0 because of the non-conference schedule. They're getting no votes right now, so there's a long way to go and jump over all those teams that are even just receiving votes. I think there are 46 teams that got at least one AP top 25 vote last week, and Nevada wasn't one of them. So certainly you go beat teams by 49 points game in and game out, you're going to get some of that love. But I think a potential ranking is probably at least a month away, maybe around that Diamond Head Classic. That'd be right around Christmas. That tournament's the week before Christmas. So, they're going to have to stack up some wins. But who's to say that they can't stack up those wins? Because how they've played so far, shows that this is a very talented team.
Ken Palm, they recently after last night's win over Pacific, they jumped to 45. So it's quite the jump there. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it probably should take that month and a half before they crack those rankings. Obviously dependent on running the table. But before we get out, we could talk about Tyler Powell. We talk about how deep this team is. It felt like that ninth person was Daniel Foster, and it was between him and Tyler Powell, and I think Powell wanted his minutes. We have an update about the Powell situation. I mean, Alford came out and said that he's probably going to redshirt this season and most likely look for other opportunities in the years to come.
Yeah, so if he doesn't play this year, since he played as a true freshman, he could redshirt this season, not use a year of eligibility. So he's already used 2 years, one at Seton Hall, one at Nevada. If he redshirts this year, he'd have 2 more years at Nevada, and obviously Lucas, Blackshear, Hunter McIntosh, all gone after this year. Their graduation is expired. So, that he could step into some legitimate minutes there. So that's why he hasn't been dressing. I did get a message I don't even see him on the bench. He was on the bench yesterday. Now, could he transfer at the semester break and trying to go to another school? Potentially. Because, Nevada's going to load up with guard transfers this offseason. But, Coach Alford did say after yesterday's game, he believes Tyler Powell is a very talented player. He thinks he could play for this program. Just they're so deep right now, he's not going to get a lot of minutes. So what's the point of playing him a couple minutes a game and using a year of eligibility when you can maybe save that year, play him in 2024, 25, 25, 26, more extended minutes, get more value out of his remaining eligibility. So the thought process now is he's probably going to redshirt, stay at Nevada through the year, and then maybe be a big-time player for the Wolfpack next season. But, we'll track what happens with him at the semester break, see if there are any changes that are coming there. You just legitimately can't play 13 scholarship guys. And I think all 13 guys on Nevada roster probably feel like they deserve to be playing double-digit minutes. Now, when Tylen Pope comes back, the Tulane transfer, somebody else is going to lose some minutes as well. Right now, kind of the odd guys out are Tyler Powell, Jariah Coleman, and Amir Robinson. Amir's a freshman, so I don't think he's begging or barking for minutes at this point. So there are your kind of 9 guys. But when Tylen Pope comes back, whose minutes are you cutting from there? Because Tylen's a guy who probably deserves to play 15 to 20 minutes per game. So it's a good problem to have for sure, but it also can be a problem if there, is maybe some grumbling in the locker room, why aren't I playing? So that's something that Nevada will have to deal with. It seems by all accounts that this team gets along really well together and they want to put winning at the very top, but certainly there's ego in any player who made it to the Division I level. So something to watch for, but yeah, Tyler's situation probably won't play this year. And, Tylen Pope, they've called it week to week, not expected to play Saturday against Portland. So we'll see when that week to week time frame is up, but it's probably a couple weeks away.
Yeah, kudos to Alford and staff. I mean, if you think about those first years under Alford, you had Grant Sherfield and that entire team, and it seemed like like there was like like kind of internal beefs within the squad, which led to kind of like poor performance. And you look at this squad, and it seems like they really like being around each other. So chemistry does have a large part to play in a team's success. And if you don't like each other, it makes it a lot harder to win and go where you need to go. So. But yeah, we have the upcoming game against Portland on Nevada Sportsnet. Interesting matchup, obviously middle of the road, but just a quick, do you have any like quick nuggets about that Portland team, or just?
They get it back a key player from injury who had a broken leg last year. They have a returner who's an all-conference player. So the top end of the roster is pretty strong. They actually did lose Moses Wood, the Galena High graduate, and went to Washington, so we already got his game against Nevada. So, it's probably a team that's going to finish somewhere around 500 in West Coast Conference play. They did lose their first game yesterday, so it's a team that you would expect Nevada to beat. They'll probably be, a double-digit favorite, right around 10 points. And, I don't think anyone's expecting a 49-point win, but we'll see if they can keep following it up. After this game against Portland, they got 12 days off in terms of gameplay. So, that's always a concern, too. Are you going to build some rust up by almost taking 2 weeks off? But you look at the upcoming schedule, and like I said, there are a lot of games where Nevada should be pretty heavily favored and should not be tested late in the second half if they continue to play like they have through the first 3 games.
Okay. Well, I'll be working a long day on Saturday. Nevada football obviously starts at noon. Nevada basketball at 7 p.m. So long day for Wolfpack Nation, but not a bad way to kind of not start your week, but end your week before Thanksgiving. Chris, before we go, any fun Thanksgiving plans?
No, we're making the turkey. We've never made the turkey before, so that'll be fun. We have the turkey, we have the brine, we have the seasoning, we got the butter we're gonna slide up in between the skin and the meat.
So what's your route to go in the oven?
No, we're using our Traeger actually. So we got some apple pellets, apple rub, and then the apple brine. So that's the route we're going. We'll stuff that turkey with some apples, some carrots, some celery. So I've never actually been in charge of the turkey. We've got a couple of pies from Mix. That's a great place. Yeah. Everyone's been already assigned their duties and what they're bringing, but we're definitely giving it a crack at actually making the turkey, which if we mess that up, that's obviously bad news. But we got a good plan. I think we're going to be good. Are you making a side, or have you been assigned a food item?
Yeah, the missus actually handles all that, but she, we're probably going to make like stuffing and mashed potatoes and side dishes. Okay. She makes a really good green casserole, so that should be good stuff. My favorite turkey I've ever had was deep fried, but that's like dangerous. It's like
Yeah, we're not deep frying ours.
It's delicious, but man, is it dangerous?
Okay.
But yeah, it should be a good week, obviously, with all the festivities. But big game on Saturday, and Nevada will look to go 4-0. Catch that on Nevada Sportsnet. Thanks for joining us inside the den. We'll be back next time, and remember to like, rate, subscribe wherever you guys get this.